Hey there, what's happening? So today we are going to be talking about something that's a little bit more creative writer-y in that it has a much more narrow use, and that is writing dialogue. Okay, so dialogue is, of course, when characters speak to each other within a piece of writing. The important thing for us to remember is, in order for it to function, in order for us to understand what they're saying and to be able to follow the ideas, there are certain rules that we have to follow. First, though, of important pieces of vocabulary. First, tagline. So what is a tagline in dialogue? Well, those are the words used to identify the speaker in a piece of dialogue. So for example, we see this statement right here. Do you need a ride? Asked Patty. Asked Patty is our tagline. It identifies who is saying that. It identifies the speaker. And then we have interrupters. So an interrupter is a tagline that occurs in the middle of a piece of a dialogue instead of at the end or in the beginning. So for example, if I don't find a ride, Melissa said, I can't go to the Brain Bowl competition. So Melissa said happens right in the middle of her statement. That's our tagline. And since it's in the middle, it is an interrupter. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into some important rules in terms of formatting and punctuation. Okay, rule number 1. Every time a new character speaks, you have to start a new paragraph. Each character, when they say something, they get their own paragraph. So, if you look at our example down here, indent, hello, said Giancarlo. Okay, Giancarlo's done talking. So, since a new character is talking, we indent again. Hey there, Giancarlo. How's it going? Everything okay? Your dog doing well? You getting enough sleep? Asked Juan. Okay. Juan is done talking now. A new character is speaking, Giancarlo. So we again indent. He gets his own paragraph. Yes. Rule number 2. You got to use a comma between the dialogue and tagline unless the speaker is asking a question or you're using an exclamation point. Now, the reason for these commas is to give the reader a chance to have their brain process what they're seeing and make the overall piece a little more organized, a little more spread out, and it allows for us to follow it with greater ease. So, and then, of course, make sure to end the whole thing with a period. So some examples here. I would like to go to the beach this weekend, she told him. So after the word weekend, before the close quotation, comma. She told him, period. Do you need a ride? Asked Patty. Now, since this is a question that's being asked, we get rid of that comma and we replace it with a question mark. So last word in the quote, question mark, end quotation marks, tagline. And finally, he loved you, she said, pointing a finger at Sally. Since in this case, we want to use an exclamation point to show that the character is screaming or being really intense, again, we get rid of the comma and just replace it with an exclamation point between the last word and the end quotation mark. Rule number 3. Okay, when using an interrupter in your dialogue, it should be set off by commas. Whoops, I messed up the thing there a little bit. Maybe. Before and after. Okay? Note that the first of the second half of the sentence is in lowercase as well. That's because this is all one statement. So you don't have to start that second half with a capital letter. So that is, comma, Wesley said, comma, that neither you nor me is her boy. Okay, so comma at the end, right here. And then after our tagline, after our interrupter, Wesley said, boom. So if you're having a tagline, make sure it looks like that. Rule number 4. Oh, my cat's being all friendly. So nice. Remember that taglines can come at the beginning of sentences too. So you don't always have to be saying blah, 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 he said, blah, 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 she said, blah, 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 he said. Okay. The words inside the quote should end with a period if the quote starts after the tagline. And they still need commas before the quote. So she said, comma, that is disgusting. And then, of course, you end with a period. Now, just some general tips here, some things that you can use to make your dialogue a little bit stronger, a little bit easier to understand, and a little bit more vivacious. Use your taglines and your interrupters wisely. Don't just have a bunch of he said, she said, they said, he said, she said, they said. Use the tagline to explain how the character is speaking or what they are doing while they are speaking. So, for example, down here, sounds great, she said, her eyes disdainfully rolling in her head. Okay, so in this case, we have a much better understanding of what sounds great is supposed to sound like in our head. We understand why she's saying it. We understand her tone of voice, and we get a little bit more imagery going in there to complete the picture. We understand what she says more because we've used our tagline wisely. Okay, next tip. If you clearly establish the order of who is speaking, you don't always need a tagline. So that earlier example of ours, we've got Giancarlo and Juan. Hello, said Giancarlo. Hey there, Giancarlo. How's it going? Everything okay? Your dog doing well? You getting enough sleep? Asked Juan. Now, we know that Juan is talking to Giancarlo, so we don't need to have it say, yes, said Giancarlo. We can just say, yes. Now, of course, don't do that all the time. Do that selectively, but it really helps to break up the monotony and improve the flow and ease of understanding of your dialogue. Our next tip, okay, ditch any dialogue that doesn't move the story forward, help characterize someone, or have symbolic meaning. Okay, people do not need to read small talk. We don't need to have a giant 3 pages about them talking about the weather before we get to the stuff that actually moves the story forward, that enhances the conflict or does something to the plot. Ditch the small talk, meaningful stuff only. Another one, don't use too much. There's nothing worse than when I see a young person's piece of writing and it is 98% dialogue. That makes me and pretty much everyone else want to turn our brains off. Break up your dialogue with narration and description. Okay, tell us about what the characters are doing, what they're thinking about, and what's going on around them to help develop the concepts and ideas within the passage. Okay, break up your dialogue with narration to make the dialogue better. All right, then, our next one. It's not just about what the characters say. He characters. Oh, having a bad one today, guys. Having a bad one. What are you going to do? It's not just about what the characters say. It's also about how they say it. So you want to think about how your character would speak. If both characters in your dialogue sound exactly the same, you're not doing a very good job. So you should be thinking about, okay, with this character, what type of diction do they use? Do they use formal language, informal language, a lot of slang? Do they have a regional colloquial kind of thing going on? Okay, what types of words do they like to use? Think about those sorts of things. Also consider things like accents. You don't have to write, as we've seen in Catcher in the Rye, words exactly as they should be in the dictionary. You can alter them so that they reflect the way they sound when you hear them when a character is speaking. So if someone is from New York, you can try and write that New York accent. Or if someone's from Boston, park the car, you can try and get that kind of sound. I'm sorry if either of those impersonations were offensive. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to help you learn. Okay. And then also consider, how are the characters feeling when they're speaking? If they are sad, they should sound sad. You should be adding in words and phrases, maybe slowing down what they say. If they're angry, you want to make sure that their words depict anger, okay? They're maybe not thinking straight, so they use simpler words, or they use only one-word sentences and screaming. Think about how they're feeling when they're speaking. Okay, guys, that is it for us for today. Make sure you grab these notes in your note sheet and jump into those writing activities after the notes. Have a lovely day, guys. We'll talk to you soon.